Our project is creating a web app for generating indoor maps. Our sponsor is Benchmark, and my name is Bonnie.
My name is Cody.
My name is Jacob.
My name is Mason.
I'm Samira.
And I'm Vincent.
And we are the team working on this Capstone project. So just to provide an overview of our project, the current problem Benchmark Electronics is facing is that they have to currently hand draw all the indoor maps of any meeting rooms, conference rooms that they are trying to create. And so our project focuses on developing a solution by creating a web application that allows users to upload a configuration file of any indoor map coordinates and objects, which then gets translated into a digital copy of the map.
All right, and then so for some of the requirements, obviously since the user would want to look at the map in the browser, you're going to have to be able to do that. And also we don't want to pigeonhole the user into only a specific browser, so we want it to be widely understandable. And then for the configuration file, obviously since the user might need to edit it, it would obviously need to be human readable. Don't want like a bitmap representation for that. And then the user always needs to be able to edit an existing configuration file. And then, so the web application must be user-friendly. No one should look at it and be confused on what's going on. And then, as I was saying before, it needs to support cross-browser compatibility and functionality. And then, for like the map API functionality, it needs to be able to read config file, write to a configuration file, and then again with the requirements, we also need to consider the future. In which case, we need to be able to query for various attributes such as an XY coordinate. Meaning, is this an XY coordinate in a room, a wall, door, and other things like that.
So for this project, we used a lot of tools and technologies, and for the IDE, we used Visual Studio Code for the front end and Eclipse for the back end. And then we also did some version controlling and used GitHub for that. And some softwares we used for the front end was AngularJS, Bootstrap, and Canvas API. And then for the backend, the softwares we used were Python, Falcon Framework, and Waitress Library to host the API on the localhost.
So my two roles were project manager and backend team member. As project manager, my main roles consisted of scheduling team meetings, which also meant submitting the meeting minutes, keeping the project on track, so ensuring that the team progress was successfully being kept in line with the timeline goals and tasks that we wanted accomplished. That also included ensuring any follow-up with team members or communication with the sponsor to receive any feedback or get any clarification on questions. And as backend team member, my responsibilities and contributions include researching different structures and format for the configuration file representation, and pair programming with backend development team members, utilizing Python, Falcon, and Waitress frameworks and libraries to create a web server and retrieve data from the config file, which can then convert the map data to a JSON object.
Alright, so my role on this project was I was a part of the front end team and worked on part of the UI design. Some of the contributions I had was researching Angular, also researching how to communicate with our backend over HTTP protocol. And then I used that by using an HTTP GET method to retrieve our JSON data from the backend. And then some of the things I applied were front-end programming and the design of the web app for easy use for our clients.
So my name's Jacob, and my role was head of the front-end development team. My contributions were design and implementation of styling of the UI and UX, setting up the routing for the website itself, developing front-end services to call to our team API, call to Canvas API, and to build out the actual visual representation of the maps themselves.
I'm Mason. I am a member of the backend team. I worked on developing the backend web API in Python. This was through pair programming with the other backend team members, occasionally updating to add new features to the backend, and then the testing and bug fixing the various functionalities of the backend web API. Early on in the project, I also helped research various technologies to use on the back end and look into their pros and cons, and ultimately deciding on which technologies to use, and coordinated with the front end team to sync up HTTP interactions and how we would exchange JSON between the front and back end.
I'm Samira, and I'm a part of the front end team, and my role is to contribute into researching on the different front-end JavaScript frameworks, just such as Angular, React, and Vue. And I also weighed out the pros and cons to decide, and we ended up using AngularJS. And I also made sure to keep up to date with the README file on GitHub and made sure like all the descriptions were up to date and stuff like that. And then I also created some mock UI designs for the web application. So I realized that having mock designs would be super helpful for when we actually create the web application. It did. So I also created the base AngularJS project onto GitHub. And I created some necessary components and some base code of each component in AngularJS project.
Alright, so I'm Vincent, and I'm also just another backend team member. My initial contributions were just researching various representations for the configuration file and just kind of detailing the pros and cons of all the different ones that we were able to come up with. And I've just been assisting in the backend development with the other backend team members for whatever they need me to do.
So now we're going to go into a front-end demonstration of what we have so far, and after that, a demonstration of our back-end. So this is the front-end demo of what we have so far. This is our landing page, so right when you log on to our URL, you'll be greeted with this page. This is just a working title right now, but so to start, we click the Get Started button, and it will take you to this page where you can either create a new map or browse existing maps. So if I were to go to create a new map, then I'd be greeted with this page where I can name my map here and also and then upload a file by either dragging it or clicking this upload file button up to the website, which would then generate a map for you. But if we were to go back to browse maps up in the navigation bar up here, which is the other options, you'll see that we have a list of maps. Now these files are actually just test files, but they're a way for us to know that we've connected our front end and back end. We are currently getting this data directly from a locally run server that houses our API. So all of this is working together right now. And so what we'll be able to do is search for a specific map that has been created in the past, and then once you do that, you can click on a map file, and it would bring you to a display of the map itself. But we don't have that part set up yet. But we have the back end and the front end working together, and all of the design to match exactly what we had for our mocks.
Alright, so this is a demo of the back end of our mapping project. Alright, so just a quick overview of the code. This is going to be hosted on just the local host for this demo. This is using the waitress library to host it, which is just serving the API, which is a Falcon API, on localhost. It has 3 methods currently. It has a get request for getMap, which will return the map in the form of JSON data. It has a writeMap option, which then gets the same type of JSON data, same format that this returns. It takes that in, and then it either can edit an existing map or create a new map from that. And then list maps, which will list all of the maps in the file system. This is currently operating independently, but will obviously be synced up for the front end, and all of these features will be called by the front end in actual scenario. So here, just adding the routes to the API, just URL extensions. Alright, let's get started. Opening up PowerShell, waitress run, which is this program. Alright, so serving on localhost. Then we have this set up, which is just a Python program to test it. This calls in HTTP GET on localhost at the port, the getMap functionality. This one is going to get the file named test file. Alright. And you see it has returned the file size, type of objects included in the file, all as JSON data. And you can see that the server registered that request. Now we will move on to the next one to test. Oops, need that. Don't need that. Okay. So this is the JSON data that will be sent. You see it's in the same format as this, but a little bit different. It will write to a file called writefile. It's calling the writemap URL extension. You can see here that nothing by the name writefile exists. Alright, so now we're going to run that one. You can see that it got all the information, it sent it out. This is the format that the files are in if you open them with a text editor. And you can see that the file now exists there, and we can verify this additionally in the next step of the process, which is the final request to the list maps functionality. And if we call that, you can see that there are all the maps that you could see in File Explorer. I'll just open that up again. Oops. Test file 2, and write file. Alright, and you can see that all this information is being returned as JSON. They're being listed as JSON arrays. These are all JSON arrays with JSON objects of each object type. And that is how the backend functions and its current features.
Some lessons we learned is that communication amongst team members is very important because it allows for a supportive environment and can lead to all team members being on the same page. Fostering a team dynamic and collaborative environment can lead to positive outcomes and help us to achieve our goals and foster success. And we also learned that being proactive can be helpful to account for any debugging or challenges, such as on the front end, routing buttons and links was a little bit difficult, but by being proactive, we were able to overcome that. And also for the back end, we learned how to build a web API using Python and some new cool information about application hosting. So overall, it was a positive experience.
So some of the next steps we have lined out are to finish the cohesive integration of the front end with the back end. And we're going to be able to do that by sending a JSON object that will convert from our config file to generate the indoor map, and then display the map on our UI web application. And we would also like to add some features like querying our map APIs, and then having the config file map object types.
We would like to thank our sponsors and our instructors for providing any feedback throughout the project, and are excited to see what the next semester holds. And thank you for watching this presentation.